Hello, I hope everything is in good order and ready to follow my current presentation. Do not be afraid, our materials is not difficult because there are no calculation, no formulas, and no lengthy readings. I hope you will enjoy following this presentation and may you get the benefits. Let's start by looking at the following two videos.
I'm Dr. Austin Tomlinson. I studied a master's degree in theoretical physics, followed by a PhD in theoretical physics, and now I'm just finishing my PG Diped in secondary education in physics. I found the teacher training experience rewarding but challenging. You spend a lot of time planning lessons and doing all the administrative tasks, but the reward comes off from seeing children, learning from what you've done, getting difficult concepts, and that, to me, seeing those light bulb moments, and every teacher says it, but they are really quite impactful on you. The thing I enjoy the most about teaching is being lost in a problem with some of the pupils, and it could be you trying to solve a physics problem and they're trying to solve it with you, and together you're working collaboratively to understand physics or the universe. I also enjoy teaching mathematics, something that as a physicist you're naturally very good at. So finding those opportunities to get a bit of maths in there as teachers is very fun as well. I love working with people, and that's children and adults. And as a teacher, you get to make an impact on more than just children's lives, but other adults around you as well, because everyone's working together and learning things from each other. So if you like working with people, children especially, of course, teaching is a very good career choice.
I remember very first day when I entered there. I was very much nervous because I knew what kind of responsibility it is. They were looking at me, seemed like they expected something extraordinary. With my all bravery, I started. All I knew, I shared with them. However, little by little, I understood how much more it required. Because every one of them is special and they need special concern. Some was naughty, some could not study well, some kept asking questions, answers of which I didn't know. For them to be good humans, I improved myself. If I don't follow my own rules and principles, my student won't follow them as well. Therefore, I need to have very good and straight way to follow. For them to understand, I need to find alternative ways to explain. I always looked for new methods. I was really happy when they understand me and my teachings. Then, in order to be able to answer follow-up questions, I searched more and learned more for myself. That's why I understood that if I don't have the qualities I want them to have, they can never be the way I expected them to be. I taught them more, I searched more, and I learned more. Everything I did for them. With them I improved, with them I learned more. They were the fruits of what I had been teaching for years. I loved them, I was with them all the time. They were my students, and I was their teacher.
After you watch the two videos, what effect do you get if both videos are compared? What do you think is more important, the knowledge of a teacher or the attitudes of a teacher? Please ponder on this for a moment. I will wait about 12 seconds for you to find the answer. I know your answer is definitely not the same. Some will say more importantly that knowledge of teacher because that will be used in the future is his knowledge, not his attitude. But some of you will say that the attitude is the most important because the good attitude that I emulate from my teacher will determine my success at a later date. I'm not going to determine which is more important for this question, but what I emphasize here is that there are two different thoughts in relation to the question, and each one has its own truth. As with the illustration in the two videos, there are also two distinct thoughts which have shaped our world's civilization. These two thoughts have their own richness. They are Eastern thinking and Western thinking. Let us take a look at the following map. Here is shown the Eastern world and the Western world. We find all Asian continent in the Eastern world. When we talk about philosophy or thought, we find that there are four areas in the East that are the main source of Eastern philosophy. There are India, China, Japan, and Middle East. If so, what are the different thoughts of East and the West? What are the difference? There are at least four differences of Western and Eastern thinking. The Western part emphasizes the logic, while the Eastern one emphasizes more on the inner world. In the West, materialism. In the East, further priorities institution. In the West, priorities scientific discoveries or science. In the East, more interested in mysticism. In the West, many emphasize conflict, such as conflict between religions institution or government institution, or between labor and corporation. In the East, instead passing harmony. However, although both regions have a very similar perspectives, they both contribute complementary contributions. The following screens will explain to the contributions. Western thinking contributes much to the economic and political field of the Eastern countries. For example, many of Eastern countries become democracies due to the influence of Western thought. In contrast, the Eastern part affect countries in the West through philosophy and spirituality. We know together the major religion of Western countries, such as Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, come from the East. As I already mentioned earlier that there are four main sources of philosophy, namely India, China, Japan, and Middle East. Each of them has unique philosophy. Let me explain the main philosophy of these areas. Indians, who are mostly Hindu, have the philosophy that each individual has a personal responsibility. They believe there is a common moral standard, but each individual is accountable individually. In China, they emphasize harmony, harmony of country and religion, family and community, and so forth. And it looks the concept of yin and yang. In Japan, their philosophy is a life's pleasure and goodness with nature. Japanese people always see that doing well with nature is important. And in the Middle East, their philosophy follow each other's religious teachings. Now, how exactly is educational philosophy in the East? There are three most prominent philosophies in the East. The first is educational, education as a way achieving. The Eastern people saw that to achieve success one was by school. That's why for the people in the East, having an education is very important. The second is emphasize on role of teacher. Unlike the West, which further accentuates the knowledge of the teachers, the Eastern people are very attentive to teacher action. That's very important to them. Perhaps this philosophy exists because it is influenced by the fact that the majority of the philosophers of the East are teachers. And lastly, education was not only need to live now, but life after that. In this section, it is very opposed to those living in the West. People who live in the West do not relate education to human life in the hereafter. They often consider it to be unreasonable. Now, regarding educational objective in the East, I found there are at least 7 Eastern educational objectives. The first is the suffering are acceptable. The second is individuals must be changed to be able to face life. Third, humanity must be aligned with nature. The fourth, change comes from the relationship between teachers and students. for people who are in the West, it is not very concerned. The most important thing for them is the knowledge of the teacher. Fifth, religious sacred book as a reference. May use other books, but should not contradict religious scriptures. That's why in the East, religious influences are very strong. And the latter second, they somewhat resemble that the highest purpose of education is to achieve salvation in the world to come. As an Adventist, we have their own educational philosophy based on the Bible and the writings of Ellen White. For example, we believe that education and redemption are one. We believe God is working with school and teachers to form the character of God in every student. We believe that the most important thing in teaching is how to make each student intimately connected with God. We believe also that there must be balance between physical, mental, and spiritual in the education process, and so forth. If you look at someone, I mean, if we look at some philosophy of the Adventist Church, some of them are similar to the Eastern philosophy. The following slide will show its similarities. As I said before, the Eastern philosophy has a spiritual book as a reference. The Seventh-day Adventist philosophy holds the same things, the Bible and the spirit of prophecy as a references book. The Eastern philosophy considers education necessary for salvation. The Seventh-day Adventist philosophy also indicates the same, that education and redemption are one. In the East, emphasize on the role of teacher. We also support teachers as key in learning. The Eastern philosophy has the ultimate goal of nirvana. We are also preparing students for eternity. Essentially, Seventh-day Adventist philosophy is somewhat similar to that of the Eastern philosophy, that religious teaching converts with educational philosophy. May this digitally presented material benefits all of you. See you again.